Welcome back to the Method Vans build series. Today we want to talk about van floors and subfloor preparation for our finished flooring. In these vans, we want to create a bit of what we call a thermal break between the metal flooring of the van and whatever our finished floor is. If we put plywood, which is in itself has a bit of a thermal break to it, right on the metal flooring, the cold will transfer through that metal quite rapidly. Now, when it hits the wood, it will slow down, but it will definitely still chill off that wood just the same. So the more material, either R value or thermal break material that we can put between the van floor and our finished flooring, will make that floor a little bit more enjoyable in a four-season adventure van. So what we like to do, and for good reason, what we like to do is add a thermal break material to the ribbing of the van floor, to the backside of our substrate, to our half-inch plywood that we use, which is a Baltic Birch, same as we've talked about in terms of our window rings. And that thermal break is going to give us some nice kind of ability for that cold to stop. And it doesn't stop completely. We need a lot of R value to do that. Even in a house, we're talking 2x6, 2x8 walls. That much insulation is kind of required to really kind of stop that cold to penetrate through it. And we obviously can't do that in a van because we just don't have the headspace. And a lot of builders will build up a false floor and then insulate it with rigid or with spray foam. And although that's good and you get some R value, the disadvantage is we lose height. And as soon as you get 5'9", 5'10", up to 6 feet, you're going to be in trouble in terms of your overall head clearance. Our vans in the center, now obviously the roofs are a bit arched in these vans. We have a full 6'3" between our finished flooring and our finished ceiling height. So we boast kind of the most volume possible in these vans, and getting 6'3" is really tremendous. So, but to do that, we can't build up the subfloor. And so what we choose to do is to use a closed cell foam called Minicell into all of the ribbing of the van floor. We build that up completely, and then we put on the backside of our half-inch Baltic Birch another full quarter-inch of the Minicell foam. So between what's in the flooring, in the ribs of the flooring, plus what's underneath the plywood, we end up with varying thicknesses of Minicell. So there are some places we only have quarter-inch. There are other places we have half-inch, and then there are other places we even get up to a full 3/4 inch of Minicell. So in the van floor, if once you've looked at your floor, if it comes with a plastic floor, pulling that out and then checking the ribbing of the van, you'll notice there are a variety of different depths of ribs in the van. And I'll give you a quick peek of that as we go through in terms of looking at the Minicell. We just use a contact adhesive. This isn't a perfect science by any stretch of the imagination. We're just trying to get as much coverage in the flooring as possible to minimize that cold transfer or the lack of heat transfer. And so let me grab the camera and I'll just give you a quick view of what the flooring looks like at this point. And so to kind of give you a bit of an idea, what we've got going on here is you'll see, and this comes to our variety of thicknesses. So right here on this one, we end up with a thick channel. The two outer channels are thick, so we actually have two layers of foam. We have a layer on the bottom, which is narrower, and then that bigger 5-inch piece on the top. And then the middle channel is a little bit narrower. Again, it's only a 4-inch on the top, but again, we layered in a piece in the middle. And anywhere and everywhere that we have a lowered profile, we've now filled that in with Minicell. And as I mentioned, it's not perfect. We're not trying to be perfect with this. We're just really trying to get a bit of a thermal break between the van floor and our finished flooring. Now you'll see in this case that, for example, right here, we're only going to have here on this higher ridge, we're only going to have a 1/4 inch of the Minicell. On spot like say this, we've got a 1/4 inch here plus another 1/4 inch. It's going to be underneath the plywood, so we're going to end up with a 1/2 inch. And then we get to spots like here, we've got a 1/4 inch on the bottom, a full 1/4 inch here, and then there's going to be another 1/4 inch on top of this, which is underneath our plywood. So we end up with a full 3/4 there. Now, when we attach our substrate, which in this case, like I said, is 1/2 inch Baltic Birch, waterproof glue, multi-ply, beautiful plywood, we attach it with rivet nuts. And the rivet nuts that we use are actually a plus nut. And so I'll grab one out of my pocket here just to give you a quick look. And so that is what a plus nut looks like. And so the plus nut is nice in that it grabs in varying thicknesses. And throughout this van floor, we have a lot of different thicknesses of sheet metal. Sometimes there's double layers, sometimes there's single layers. And so the nice part of a pre-bulb plus nut like this is it can grab into a variety of thicknesses of metal. And you'll see the striations or those marks in the top head of the rivet nut. And that's our gun, and that's our indicator in the gun telling us that we've set that rivet nut properly. And we use a pneumatic riv nut setter. I'll give you a quick peek of that. And we have an expensive one, a high quality one. Here is the one. This is from Cardinal Supply out of the US. You can buy a $100 one or a $200 one on Amazon. This one's about $1,500, but it sets perfectly every single time. And because we set a lot of rivet nuts, it makes sense to have a high quality one. But if you're just doing a DIY, get yourself a pneumatic rivet nut setter. And off Amazon, find a cheap one that you're happy with and go with it. We all of those rivet nuts in the floor are 1/4 inch, and so we will be attaching our plywood flooring to the van floor through these 1/4 inch rivet nuts with 1/4 inch stainless steel hardware. And you'll see, we have these throughout the van. And I haven't done a count, but there's probably 50, 60 rivet nuts in here that will attach the plywood substrate to the van floor. And as we come over here, you'll see like it gets a bit weird in areas like this. Like we've got, all of these varying thicknesses. You can see that. I mean, nothing too fancy. We're just trying to cover as much of the floor as we can. But at the same time, we're trying not to build up the floor unnecessarily. You'll also see here we've built up our flooring for our additional rear passenger seating, and so this has been structurally adhesive with Sikaflex 252 through to the van floor. We've built it up with solid aluminum, again in varying thicknesses to get it to a finished height. And so our one track will feed onto that, and then our other track will come over to here. And there is another 1/4 inch piece of aluminum that's going to sit on top of here and sit on top of here to get us to our finished floor height. And then we bolt through our L track, which is a mobility specific L tracking, down through the floor with another 1/4 inch thick plate on the bottom. So that gives you, the robustness or the idea of what to expect in adding these secondary seating positions to the van. So that's kind of it for me today in terms of showing you the Minicell and showing you what you can kind of do to give yourself a bit of a thermal break. I'll take you quickly outside, I guess, and just show you the flooring that is kind of ready. So we've templated our floor. Again, this is that nice 1/2 inch Baltic Birch. And we've templated the flooring, and we use a factory template that came with the van in the beginning. We've adapted it and modified it a bit, and we pre-drill all of our holes so that we know where they're going to go through on the van. And so then here we have our van floor, and we've used a shiplap joinery on all of the sheets. So we have a nice 1-inch shiplap, so we get a nice overlap. Everything's been cut for the shape of the van. We have cut out for our L tracking, which is going to be in for our seating. And then the other thing we do is we add a fairly large in-floor heating mat. And so we've routed out for the, the bulkier piece of the mat. And then this gets two-part epoxied down to the flooring. And this is a nice 150 centimeter mat from Expedition Upfitters. And so that ends up getting, dead smack right in our nice galley space where we're standing. And it's really kind of comfortable under the feet. It's all 12 volt, so it works exceptionally well. So we end up with, kind of getting, a heated floor without the bulk of other ways of doing it by building up, putting in floor heating. I mean, those all sound great, in your home. My home has all in-floor heating throughout the entire house. But in a van, we just gotta kind of compromise sometimes, and we can't have, always home grade construction principles coming into play in van construction. And the major issue, like I mentioned in the vans, is our height. So as soon as we encroach by adding, subfloor, by dropping the ceiling down so it's flat, so it's easier to work from, that's all great until you walk in the van and you're crouching the entire way. So, take a look at your van, see if you got 6'3", and see how you compare to how we do things here at Method Vans. Anyways, thanks for joining us again, and stay tuned for more in our build series. And I am posting pictures on Instagram as well to give you some static views of what we went over. Anyways, take care and get outside. Cheers.